Everybody built their own bot. What I did was grab my whole team, give them the instructions, we went through it. Everybody built their own bot, and now they're working with those, curating the instruction to fit their own unique needs. We're doing this in a very secure way. There's going to be some limitations. I've added all of this stuff so that you all can take this and customize it and do whatever you want.
Welcome to AI Force, your source for Salesforce AI training, news, insights, and more. I'm Mark Good, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Chris Pearson, who has prepared an entire walkthrough for you on how to build your own agents to help you work in Jira. Chris has been at the forefront of the AI revolution with Salesforce, constantly working with the latest and greatest tools, giving everyone his feedback and tips along the way. And he discusses new ways to work with AI even smarter than we have been able to before. If you're watching on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, or even TikTok, make your way over to aiforcetraining.com/live to get access to the training resources that Chris is going to be walking you through today. So make sure you go ahead and do that now. Please join me in the comments and let's go ahead and welcome Chris to the stage. Chris, welcome. Glad to have you here today. Tell us what we are about to get into.
Oh, well, I'm excited to be here. Like many Salesforce professionals, IT professionals that are joining us, I deal with Jira. Love it or hate it, it's the system of record that helps manage your entire delivery process. And I mean, we use it at my current organization, both from a service and a delivery standpoint. So help desk tickets, they start in Jira. All of the new features and bugs that we fix that we're applying to the Salesforce platform, or really any other application, they all go through a Jira workflow. And what I'm here to show you is that one of the biggest pain points around using Jira is creating those items and looking at a blank screen. There's nothing more frustrating than having to fill out all of the details for your developer, your admin, whoever that next person in line is. And we can use AI, specifically ChatGPT, to help us improve that workflow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think there are a lot of people joining just now and will be in the comments sharing the same sentiment about the challenges of the amount of time that it takes us to work in the Jira environment and help us do the things that we need to do. So having an AI come along and sort of just fill that gap, get us like 80% once we're staring at that blank page is just fantastic, huge time saver. So I've seen what you've done here. I'm excited for everyone else to see it as well. I'm going to take off and get off the stage here and let you take over and just dive right into it. For everyone joining, please send your questions in through the comments. I'll be watching those, responding, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end with anything that's left over for Chris. And so everyone help me welcome Chris to the stage. And Chris, I'll let you take it over.
Oh, and before you leave, Mark, all of the materials that I'm going to show, and how are you sharing those out?
Yeah, if anyone who's is joining, if you're not on the AI Force training streaming platform, do that now. So you can get to it, aiforcetraining.com/live. If you're there, if you scroll down past the comments down below the video, you'll see a card for the Jira agent resources. So when you see that, you'll be able to get the link there and pull it up. But it's got everything, Chris, that you've shared so graciously with the community. So head over to aiforcetraining.com/live and you'll be able to get that.
Awesome. All of that's going to be made available, is out there. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Okay. So I'm going to be working with a little bit of a split screen here. On one side, I've got my instruction manual, and let's follow along with it. And I'll maybe add some color commentary for you all, so you can do this on your own. And then on the right side will actually be kind of our way of actually making those changes, whether we're in Jira, ChatGPT, anything like that. So just quick overview, we're going to go through this almost this entire document. We won't get to maybe everything, just depending on questions, all that, but we're going to give you all the background information you need. We're going to talk about security, of course, any prerequisites that you need. You do need a paid ChatGPT license, but that's only $20 a month. I think actually Netflix now costs more than that with their price increases. You also need access to Jira, specifically the Jira, the Atlassian Developer Console. I'll show you what that is. We're going to go ahead and give you all the instructions on building things so that you can use this integration. And then you've got the ability to customize everything that I've got for you today. So let's get started. First, let me just make sure everybody feels the same pain point as I do and my team does and every IT team does. This blank page, I call it blank page syndrome in Jira. There is nothing more frustrating than when I need to go create an issue, whether it's a new feature, a bug, just an enhancement, a change, pick list value change, whatever it is. I have to type it all out and I have to provide all of those details, and that takes a lot of time that I don't always want to spend writing all of that up. And so why don't we outsource that to AI so that we can get some help, speed things up, and do something else with our time? So you don't need to write any code, which is what's great about today. So if you're non-technical, then I'm here for you, right? All you need to be able to do is copy and paste and follow instructions. All right, so I talked a little bit about those prereqs. You do need access to Jira. However, there may not everybody have Jira. You may not have it. You may have Azure DevOps. You may be using something else. You can still use what I'm talking about today. You can still at least use some of the assistance to give you that information using AI. You just won't have the value of the integration, just the connection between ChatGPT and Jira. There's still some value there if you don't have Jira. You must be able to access the Atlassian Developer Console. So go to developer.atlassian.com. You can see that I'm already logged in. You do need to be able to go there. You'll see under your name, maybe an option that says Developer Console. That's where we're going to be going to make some changes. And then, like I said, ChatGPT Pro access or paid access. That just gives you the ability to create these custom GPTs. So let me tell you first, before we get started, before you think that these AI assistants are going to proliferate and you can have something that your entire organization is using, let's talk about how we're going to use the security. So really important for me to make sure that you all know how we're doing this in a very secure fashion. So first, Jira, we're going to be setting up an OAuth connection in Jira, which basically just means you're going to be granting access to Jira using your own credentials. Your own credentials. That means you cannot share this Jira connection with other people. It's going to use your own permissions. So think about these assistants as helping you, if you're building it. Does that mean that you can give these same instructions to anyone else within your organization who has this access? Or you can create some of the work for them, but it will be using your own credentials. So that's important to know. And by that, I mean, any of the access that you have in Jira, we're not going to be giving any more access than you have. So if you don't have the ability to do something such as like creating a user story or maybe changing the status, like if those permissions have been locked down, those same permissions are going to apply for AI. So it's using your login and kind of acting on behalf of you. Does that make sense? So that's a little bit about Jira. Now let's talk about ChatGPT GPTs. So I've got my screenshot over here. When you create custom GPTs, you've got a couple options as far as publishing or sharing those. And you can see on the screenshot, you can keep it private so that only you access it. You've got another option that says anyone with the link. And if you are in a Teams edition, meaning that your organization has paid for multiple licenses, you can also share GPTs just with your workspace, or this final option, you can put it on the GPT store. But again, none of that really makes sense to do because it's going to use your own credentials. And in order for this to work, you literally will have to log in and grant access. That's how ChatGPT keeps things secure. So if you want to go share it, just remember people will get stuck at the end when things need to connect to Jira, because it's going to say it needs credentials to log in, and it's going to be your specific credentials. So when we talk about like why are we doing this on a $20 paid ChatGPT subscription, like why would we do that? Let's calm down. Let me tell you why. You got a couple different options when you're dealing and integrating with Jira and using OpenAI. So by and large, everybody uses the Jira website, right? Whether you're running the cloud or the on-prem version, this is the screens that you look at when you're using Jira. And there is some built-in capabilities of AI in Atlassian's products. Actually, I think they're actually really cool. But we can't customize those AI features. They're built into the platform. And so we want to be able to customize things so that they work how you want to work. And that's where we go to this next swim lane right here, where you as the end user will use ChatGPT as your front door, so to speak, the front door to getting into Jira. So ChatGPT is going to be the user interface for drafting the work issues that you're creating in Jira. Why is this great? Well, you may not like the ChatGPT user interface, but you will like the cost because it only costs $20 a month. AI is based on a consumption pricing model. So the more that you use AI, when you use AI with products like such as Agentforce or other AI applications out there, you have to pay for the usage of AI. But when you're paying for a $20 subscription with ChatGPT, you're under no cost of consumption or anything like that. There are some limits. You can't keep using it. You may hit some certain limits, but all of that consumption cost is being borne by someone else, and that's OpenAI. And finally, you've got the third option. So what I am going to show you today, there are some limits. It's not exactly perfect. It can't do the Atlassian API is very finicky. It's very particular, especially when dealing with text of a certain size. So we're going to make the best that we can with what we have. But you are absolutely encouraged. If you want to build your own custom app, you could do a lot more robust things than what we're going to show today. Today, I'm giving you the tools and the foundation so that you can get ChatGPT connected to Jira. You can use it to create and update your issues and even do a couple other things too. But again, if you're building your custom app, you've got to factor in all of those costs that you would be responsible for. So, all right, I think I've justified why this is a good idea. Hopefully you all stuck with me. Let's talk about, before we get into actually building this, like designing GPTs and what are some best practices. Because I've learned a couple things since I've done this last. I wanted to model this off of what the Agentforce program is really talking about, best practices. And that means keep your agents or assistants, I'm going to probably use those words interchangeably, even though they are different. Agents will act autonomously, and assistants are going to need to be provided instructions and guidance. That's the main differentiator there. So if you can see my wonderful diagram here. By the way, if you know me, I've never met a Visio diagram I don't love. This for all the Visio haters out there, this one's for you. So what we're going to do with this process is we're going to start with the requirements assistant. That's just what I call the front door, the requirements assistant, 'cause that's the beginning part of the SDLC. As you start with requirements, then you go into design, build, test, deploy, run, support, all of that. So we're going to have a very narrow focused requirements assistant. And I can maybe zoom in here. And you're going to use this assistant to define and elaborate on whatever that issue is. And then once you are satisfied with that initial draft, then you're going to mention your dedicated Jira assistant. And that is your GPT that is narrowly focused on connecting with Jira. So that means talking to and from Jira and doing all of the fun things that Jira supports. So you'll mention the Jira assistant, which will invoke the Jira API. That will then do a create, an update, maybe even a read. So any of you who are using Salesforce permissions, it's your basic CRUD permissions: create, reading, updating data, and deleting. And so that will all happen in Jira. We'll get a success message that's then been passed back to us, making sure that everything is worked. And that's the end of the process. I mentioned requirements assistants. I've got other assistants for every single part of the software development lifecycle. And each one's got their own nuances. Scrum masters have to behave differently than a QA assistant. And of course, those are very different than a business analyst assistant. So each of these assistants, you get access to all of these instructions. They each have their own little personality that you can adjust. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of show, and then I've got everything created. So we'll hit the highlights just to keep you all moving on this. But we're going to go ahead and start in the Atlassian Developer Console. Go ahead and log into that Atlassian Developer Console. For me, you will see that I've got several of these apps created right here, where you can see these are my different connections that allow OpenAI to connect to ChatGPT. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new OAuth integration. So we'll just call this AI Force Training. Go ahead and click agree. Now, what I would recommend, give it a name that's going to mean something. You may, like you saw on mine, creating these different connections, these different OAuth permissions. You may be giving different permissions. We're going to focus today on just the permissions required to create issues and update issues in Jira software, but there are separate permissions for Jira Service Desk. So think about that. If that's like Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, kind of two different applications with two different permissions. Once we've given it a name, then we're going to go over to permissions, and we find the Jira API, and we're going to give it some additional scopes. So we click add, which then turns the word into configure, and then we're going to go into here. So now you can see that this is the Jira API. What do we need to give our assistant the ability to do? Well, we definitely want to allow it to read Jira work issues. I recommend having this view user profiles because it's going to need your access to create these issues. And then, of course, creating and managing issues. That's all you really need to give it at this point. Then you're going to move over here into authorization. All right. And so we're going to just create a little placeholder here, but this will come into play later. We just have to give it a placeholder in order for this to save. If Chris can type, there we go. All right, and then you've got this wonderful URL. So what you need to do next is go over to settings, and you will see that you've got a client ID and a secret. This is just the basics of OAuth. Think about these are the credentials that are super secret that you should not share. Will allow OpenAI to make a secure connection to Jira. And we've already granted it those permissions, what it can do with those checkboxes earlier. So store these somewhere safe just because you'll use them later. Next, you're going to go into ChatGPT and we will go create a custom GPT. So if we go over to explore GPTs, ChatGPT, /GPTs, you'll see you've got the ability to access the GPT store, and we're going to go ahead and start creating one. So creating the GPT, this part's pretty easy. Give it a name. Give it a name. Whatever you want to give it a name. I've called mine like my Jira assistant or my business requirements assistant. You may want to give it some more personality than that. You can give it a description as well. And then Mark has got all of these files out here, but I've got them embedded here. And what you're going to do is you're going to access the Jira Assistant instructions that are posted out there on the site. You can read them, and let's just look through what we've got here. So this first GPT is really that narrow scope. This is the one that's going to connect to Jira. We're not starting with the business analyst side of things. So I've kind of given it a role. It's a special helpful assistant that can take actions in Jira. Here's a bunch of different instructions that I've learned the hard way dealing with Jira's API. Jira's API, I'm forewarning you now, is very finicky about text. And that's frankly what we're doing with today is we're dealing with text. And so there's a proprietary format called the Atlassian document format. And I am really trying hard to say, AI, please use that format because you will get an error. And usually for the most part, it will self-correct. And then I've given it some additional logic down there. So you would simply copy all of this and paste it in there. Super easy. Then you're going to go down here into actions, and we're going to actually create a new action. And what I've got here is a schema. So this is what's called I know this is very confusing. There's a company called OpenAI, and then there is a standard called OpenAPI. One letter difference. But OpenAPI is just an industry standard. It's providing what looks like almost like a syntax that allows AI to kind of know how to programmatically connect with an external system. So I will tell you I can give you the link if you need to improve your schema, maybe giving it different abilities. What I would use is a GPT out there. There's this one I love, API Builder, OpenAPI. Give it whatever you need, and it will kind of spit out what you need, or modify what you have. But there's something important that you need to check before you simply copy and paste all of my instructions into the schema. This URL right here, you need to grab your Jira tenant ID. So that's just like think about like your org ID in the world of Salesforce. It's just simply an ID that knows the exact tenant or whatever that your Jira system is hosted in. And I've given you some notes on how to find it. Click your name, and then you can copy it from the URL. So simply paste that in, And that will then go into your schema. Paste all of that into this schema. And then what you will do is we will select OAuth. And that's exactly what I said at the beginning. We're using OAuth connection. And I see some fields here that I mentioned earlier that we were supposed to save earlier. Remember our client ID and client secret? If you stored those or if you didn't close the tab, guess what? Those go here, client ID, client secret, super easy. And then I'll give you just some other text to copy and paste, like the authorization URL, the token URL is very simple. Simply all you do is cut and paste that information. Now, one other thing that you will have to give it is scope. So I know that we told Jira in the developer console, we gave it those certain permissions, right? Well, we also need to tell OpenAI what the scope is. And so what I'm saying here is simply copy those exact API values and paste them in this scope right here. And then you can just keep everything else the same, save it, and you will need to then save. You will get a callback URL, and you will need to save that. And we're going to then go back into the Jira Atlassian console and paste that. So once I've saved all of that, another field will show up, that callback URL. You just simply grab that, and we're going to go over to our Jira console, and we're going to need to go to authorization and then configure. And guess what? When I put that placeholder in the callback URL, that's where it goes right here. So now we have granted permissions in Jira. We've said you can do these different things. We've given it the exact callback URL that it needs to hit in OpenAI. We've given OpenAI a big schema that says, here's how you programmatically talk to Jira. We've got something that's really exciting that we can build on from there. So once you've saved all of that, then you should be really good. And now you've got your Jira connection established. So we're going to create one more GPT. And in fact, this is where you can actually start to create multiple GPTs can use all of these, that use that one single Jira assistant that we've created. That's the beauty of this process. So let's go ahead and we'll create a new one, and you're going to create a new GPT, give it a name. Now we're moving into the BA, the requirements assistant setup, which is actually really simple as long as you know how to copy and paste. So for this, again, I've given you the instructions, but let's spend a little bit more time looking on this one. This is a lot of instructions, all right? And this is the reason why I decided to approach things in this swim lane format. I've got an assistant that's narrow focused, that's just dealing with the Jira API. Now I want to create another assistant that's going to act like a business analyst. And to all my business analysts out there, I'm one. I started my IT career as a VA. There's a lot of nuance in what you do, and I'm trying to reflect that in all these instructions. So trying to say, I won't read these to you, but I do encourage you to read these. And what's great, it's just word. As long as you can read words, you can delete what you want, you can add things. It's as easy as typing another sentence. So I've tried to make sure that it's going to minimize all of the work and the inputs that you as a human have to do, because that's what we want out of assistants. We want AI to do the heavy lifting for us. And then we just want to say, yeah, that's good or that's bad. So a lot of these instructions are really about the approach and trying to make some very smart, educated guesses on what's next. And you can see that I've organized things by section. I highly encourage you to customize this. So I run a lot of Salesforce Cloud products, but I've just started with Sales and Service Cloud on this one. You can definitely add whatever new or whatever cloud that you're working with you want. I allude to templates, so I highly suggest you review my templates. You definitely don't have to use them, but this is kind of what we came up with from my team. You can see at the beginning, I've kind of got some naming conventions in our use of Jira. We try and have a strict naming convention so we know what the issue is about. And you can see that I've got the template here. So these are the different. Each one of these little hashtags identifies things as a header. So think of this as you've got a nice Word document, and everything is like a header. These are the different sections of your document. And a best practice with working with AI, not only do I give AI instructions on what the heck goes into this section, but then I give it a sort of okay example. So those are two tips I highly recommend you factor in when you're dealing with AI with your prompting is be specific, give it examples. It will absolutely improve the quality. So I've got templates for both stories and bugs. They just there's different things required for a bug than there is a story, and that's about as easy as I can make that.
Hey, Chris, I just had a quick question coming in from Jared McCarty. Are we able to tweak the assistants after they're created?
Yes, absolutely. That is totally what I would encourage is start with these instructions, start to use things and then make adjustments. Like give it, maybe it's not paying attention to some of these instructions, or maybe you just don't want it to do or behave a certain way. Perfect examples, those templates. Maybe those templates is like overkill for your org. So absolutely change that. One of the last things that I think I mentioned here is conversation starters. These are canned messages that you can start with. They don't exactly apply with the workflow that we're going to do, but you can absolutely use some conversation starters. I will show you actually if there's time. My Scrum Master has a very cool use of conversation starters, where a conversation starters is basically a one-word slash command, and then we're telling AI to run a very complex query and present the information for us in a very friendly format. So that's kind of how I use conversation starters later. All right, I talked about this GPT workflow. Let's see if we can make this thing work. All right, so let's go back to just ChatGPT and pretend that we have set up everything like it's supposed to. And this is always the fun of doing a live demo with AI. By the way, AI is absolutely programmed to respond differently every time. There's just little nuances that are there. So we'll see how this goes. But for our workflow, we're going to actually start in the traditional like ChatGPT using like the 4.0 mode. And let's say, help me create a new user story. Actually, I already made a mistake. What you're supposed to start with is we're going to use the @ sign. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull up any GPTs that you've recently used. So I'm going to start with my business requirements assistant, because now the conversation is going to, even though it looks like I'm just in regular Chat GPT, I'm actually having this conversation with this custom GPT. Help me create a new user story for service. Here is the background. And I think I've got some, let's see. I've got my instructions here. Let me get this copied over here. Here's the background. Here's just a very, we're going to give it, I wouldn't call this the most complicated Salesforce request here. Here's the brief description. When an opportunity moves to closed one, I want to automatically create a related new customer case. Like we're going to start off a customer onboarding workflow. And I want the primary opportunity contact to be related to the case. And then I also want that contact added to the 2025 new customer welcome campaign. And then I want that case routed or assigned to the opportunity team member that had the role of customer success manager. So it sounds like a somewhat realistic scenario, right? Like when you're winning new deals out there, you want to make sure that that customer is entering into the welcome journey from a marketing standpoint. And the case is created so that the CSM can start engaging with that customer. So here we go. All right. So far, we can see AI. And what AI is doing is it is applying my template. What you can see here is this is a feature of ChatGPT called Canvas that is really powerful for BAs, anyone having to write stories, because it's basically like a Google Doc that's embedded with AI. So did you see how much work it's doing right now? Like I don't even know if I can keep coming up with words that are going to fill the time while this thing continues to think. And so why did it do this? It's because of all those instructions that we gave it. I provided it some level of detail up front. And guess what? You may not have all of that detail up front. That is totally fine. It will, the assistant is instructed to walk through things with you and build out this entire template with you, just to keep going through each section. And again, it's trained to kind of make some educated guesses. If I provided enough detail, it's going to go ahead and do its thing. And if we look at this, it made up some names for some SMEs. I think what's really cool about Canvas is you can kind of inline edit and improve things. You can also just simply type any sorts of updates. There are some nuances with using Canvas. You need to make sure that everything is saved. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we've now, just with a matter of, I don't know, was that like 2 or 3 sentences? We now have a pretty good, and I'm choosing that word carefully, pretty good. This may not be perfect, right? Like this is where humans are required to review things. Don't simply say this is done and shift it off to the next person. But this is a pretty good starting point. What I love is it's actually giving the admin some instructions on kind of how to build a flow. Whether you find those valid or not, that's all about the rest of the software delivery process. We're simply trying to speed up the creation or updates of tickets. And I've got the AC. So a little bit just about ChatGPT Canvas. If you haven't seen it, there's a quick little menu over here. Please add some different things to it, so we can maybe say, maybe we'll add some final polish to this. What this is going to do is it's going to go through the entire document and kind of clean up the formatting and headings and make sure everything is consistent. So, let's see. Assuming that we are good with this, so let's just say that we've reviewed this. You know what? I'm now ready to start and create this. This is when you're going to @mention your Jira assistant. Remember, this is the one that's the narrow focused. This one only does the integration to Jira. So you're going to @mention Jira. And this is what I would include. Please create this user story. Remember to use ADF, Atlassian document format. I put it in big, bold text in the instructions, but sometimes AI doesn't want to listen. Remember to use ADF, and no parent issue is required. I'm just creating this as a standalone. Let's see what happens. Starting action. So right now, ChatGPT is getting ready to programmatically make a connection to Jira. What should happen is it will ask me for my confirmation, like it's going to try and establish the connection. And it may make you log in if you haven't logged in. Let's see how this goes. We may need to refresh this just because it seemed like it was having a little bit of issues with the canvas. And as we wait on this, we can kind of go back to the rest of the document and make sure that all of the rest of this process is happening. So what's going to happen, whoops, is once we've mentioned, the ChatGPT is going to ask you for permission. It's going to make you request that you log in to Atlassian. You're going to get prompted with a OAuth authorization. So this is basically going to say, yes, can we use your credentials? And you'll see the exact credentials or permissions that you gave it. Remember the user, work, all of that. You will accept that, then you will confirm, and then the integration is supposed to go from there. So let's see if it happened. All right, here we go. It's now prompting me to connect. I get my wonderful splash screen. Yes, I want to proceed with this. And let's give it a little bit of a nudge here. All right, I'm going to try that one more time. All right. Live demos. So fun. So right now it's actually trying to make that connection. Okay, let's go ahead and confirm. And look, there was an issue. All right. This is something that you will experience. But what's great is AI is smart enough to try again. So I could do the same thing 10 times and it would work maybe 8 of those. And it's just the nuance of dealing with LLMs and their inherent randomness. Developers actually kind of program that randomness in because it makes the product a little bit more engaging. Right? You may not know exactly what you're going to get. So while that's working, let's see if we can kind of keep going. You should get a Jira key. So my project is called Salesforce. That's why I get this naming convention of SF and all of that in front of me. Let's see if we got it. And still waiting on that. Again, the fun of a live demo. I bet it'll finish when we flip back to this. But what I've just shown is you've now got your own BA assistant that you can tweak the personality. You've also got your Jira connection that can create and read issues. So there's a lot more things that can happen. Maybe you don't want to just create new issues. Maybe you're wanting to update issues. Maybe you want to apply that same template that I was providing to your entire backlog, and you'll have to kind of work through each individual issue to do that. But there's so many different capabilities now and options that you can do with this setup that you have. So I've got I can kind of talk about these additional assistants, but Mark, I wanted to make sure if there was any questions, we pause here while we're waiting on AI to retry.
Yeah. No, it's really good to see the challenges that you're going to run into, because I think that's one of the big things is even when ChatGPT first launched, it's like, okay, well, let's go, let's just use this thing, and then you realize that, oh wait, there are problems that you do have to overcome, and this is one of them. So there was a question that came in that I did want to get answered if we could. What is the difference between creating a dedicated Jira integration GPT versus creating one GPT with all your instructions plus the Jira integration?
That is a good question. So, where the reason why I did that, I don't know if I still have my business requirements decision. Did you see the amount of instructions that I had on the BA assistant? There was a lot of stuff for, oh my gosh, we actually had success. All right. Um, I'll answer that question, but let's just make sure that this issue actually was created since it did tell us. Let's see. Did not capture all of those details. I was a little bit worried there with Canvas. So that's interesting. It cut things off. We noticed how it was having some issues here. So it looks like we just truncated all of this. So we can ask it to please correct this. Please review the entirety of the work item that I specified and update SF 5070 with those details. With all, let's see if this happens. So back to the question about like why did I split things out? The BA has a lot of instructions, and when you try and give AI a bunch of different instructions, like you've got to be a great BA, but then you've also got to manage this complicated Jira integration. What I noticed is that it doesn't always pay attention to all of those instructions. It's kind of like trying to do 2 or 3 different tasks at once. You're just not going to succeed. Maybe you can do 1 or 2, but there's going to be a moment where you just can't keep everything straight. So, but what I have done is some of these other assistants, everything is kind of packed together. And so let's look at what I put here for. I've got my Scrum Master assistant. You can see all of the instructions are there, and I'm giving it actually some Jira actions. So I kind of put everything into the Scrum Master assistant. And the same thing goes for the QA assistant. It's writing test cases, didn't need to be as much of an expert. So I tried to kind of just package everything together. Interesting. So now we're getting, please, all right, yeah. Fun issues with the Jira. We'll try this again. Let's see. I noticed that I think, lost what's telling me here is look at these. This is actually really helpful, and I know that hopefully you all can't see the flop sweat that's happening, but it's not happening. Look at this icon. I gave each assistant its own dedicated icon. And so I can tell that my conversation, I've somehow not invited. I've pushed out my Jira assistant. So I've basically just asked a AI assistant that has no Jira abilities to do something, and that's why it's telling me this. The Jira tool is currently unavailable. Well, the BA assistant doesn't have those abilities. So let's try again. My Jira assistant, please create the user story using all of the details in the template, use PDF, and no parent issue. Try one more time.
Yeah, it's really great to see your thought logic as you walk through this, because when we do run into issues, we have to know how to address them. So, yeah, it's really nice to see you sort of think through and solve these challenges that everyone will run into?
And this one is, of course, just making life fun for me. So, were there other questions as I continue to battle against AI?
Yeah, I was saving it till the end, but why not? Let's go ahead and hit it. Question here. Can you use other GPT models such as the O1 reasoning model with this process?
Ooh, that's good. That's a good one. And now look, let's see. We've just now it's almost just complaining that it doesn't even have any ability. So that's a good one. When you go to Chat GPT, GPTs are going to use like what I think is 4.0 or maybe even an older version. So if you want to switch the model to use more advanced reasoning, you can just realize that you may need to be writing your own instructions for this. So if I was going to use O1, I would really need to prescribe and say what is the exact template, and I'm going to have to kind of give it all of those details up front when you're starting the process. Was there another question?
I had one more in the queue for you here, and it looks like, uh, what ideas do you have if we want to take this further?
Hmm. Well, what one of the newest features about O1 is O1 with O1 is the really smart reasoning model. And when you use Canvas, it can what the latest update is that it can actually render HTML code as well as React. So I'm trying to figure out ways that where you could use that means that you can use AI to create prototypes for you, maybe even mock up screenshots for you. So if you're trying to, depending on what you're trying to build, that there's a lot of possibilities there. Yeah, I can do a demonstration of that in the future.
Awesome. So what are your thoughts here? Do you think are we able to recover and get the connection back running and hit it, or do we gotta call it for today?
No, it was just a matter of battling with it, how long you all have. Create the issue. It somehow not wanting to work. And of course, all right, well, maybe we start over with one more. We'll say, we'll start over from our requirement standpoint. Help me with a user story. Here is the background. See if we can get this created quickly. And then we will ask the Jira assistant, please create this item in Jira for me. Is the entire document. So one of the nuances that I found with working with Canvas is there's a little bit of a trade-off. But what's great about Canvas is you've got this ability to modify all of this text and change things and kind of get recommendations, but not all of it seems to be saved within the database, and so that's why we saw that truncation. So let's see if we can try again. And what it'll do is ask again for my permission. Again, that's just a security check that that's OpenAI saying before you do something, before your data goes elsewhere, we want to make sure that you're okay with it. And you may be waiting. One of the fun parts of
While we
dealing with this is sometimes you are at the mercy of the servers and the usage. All right, okay, let's see. Let's try this one again. It gave me a different issue key item. So maybe we just change that to 1. All right, it did create all of the detail that I had asked for it, which was great. So maybe, and just to make double check, you can say like summarize the issue. Let's use the other one, 5070 for me, just to verify um, that you can actually read data as well. Great. So we've now just proven it's connected to Jira. It can read things. Again, my Jira assistant, not trained to give the best summaries. Remember those instructions? It was pretty much like you need to talk to Jira back and forth and use the API, but there's no when we look at this summary, there's no nuance. Like there's no emoji, there's no improved formatting with Markdown. It's pretty cut and dry, and that's just all about what the instructions are. So uh, we encountered some issues, but we made it work. So I'm excited for you all to try this. Let me show you my final one. Let's see if I've got my Scrum Master Scrum Master GPT. I'll show you this one. This one uses some conversation starters. So these are called slash commands. And so while it looks very simple, it's actually like something that really needs to run a fairly complex query that's kind of hard to get out of Jira. So a Scrum Master, what do they care about? They care about what has changed from the day before. So we're going to invoke this one conversation starter, and it's going to give me and the Scrum Master is specifically trained to deal with the finicky nature of Atlassian's API. So Atlassian's API, unfortunately, it's not like the Salesforce API where you can say go query like 18 different records and give me all of the details. It's very finicky. So what we have to do first, we have to count issues. So it tells me there were 17 different issues that changed in my current sprint yesterday. That's exactly what a Scrum Master cares about: is are things moving? Would you like me to retrieve the details of these issues? Yes. And now we can see it going again. So imagine as a Scrum Master, by the way, using Jira to figure out like what has changed, it's very difficult, but now we can use AI to run these queries in the background and give me exactly a detail of what has changed. And we just did a production deployment of some wonderful things today, so you can start to see that it's starting to give me these details. And that's what I love about this one as a Scrum Master is working through each one of these has got its own nuance. So what items changed yesterday? Maybe what items have been stuck in a certain status for a certain number of days, or simply just what's happening with this work item. Mark, that is all I got, unless there are other questions.
Yeah, we had another question here. Can you copy and paste from the canvas?
Can you copy and paste from Canvas? Oh yes, of course. Yeah, there's even an icon that's a little shortcut for you.
Yeah, yeah, the canvas feature I think was an incredible addition. I forget who they. Oh, it was I think Claude is who was the first one to sort of pop up with a nice canvas feature. ChatGPT rolled out their own version, and then I don't know if anybody's heard of this, but there's a video on the AI Force streaming page as well. You'll see it down below when this is over. You can watch it. It's about I think it's called Gen Canvas from Salesforce, their own sort of take on what a canvas is for a Salesforce user. So that can be quite interesting as time goes on if that develops as well. But the idea of canvas is sort of blooming, and I think that's a good future for us all with AI tools, especially like the one that you just showed. I mean, if I encourage everyone to get the documentation, walk through it, build your own, try it out. You won't go back once you do. You'll start using it for your own use cases, and you'll see how valuable this is. The other thing I wanted to do is just pop a comment or two on the screen that we got as you were presenting, just some appreciation from the group here. So, Chris, just drop in some Jira chatbot value bombs and giving the documentation to show us how. So thanks, Jody, for that comment. Really nice. Just so appreciate everyone for joining. Did you have anything else, or have we finally made it to the end? And
we made it to the end. We were successful. We created, we updated items. We hit the other assistants. So I'm excited to hear feedback from this crew. What they find working well for them.
Awesome. Well, from myself and from everybody else in the community, thanks so much for joining and sharing with us all. I'm going to go ahead and take the stage, do an outro here, but I appreciate you, Chris, and everyone. Make sure to go follow Chris. I dropped his LinkedIn in the chat, so do that, and appreciate you for coming on.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Please share this with someone who needs it. Subscribe below, register for the next event in the upcoming sessions, and I'll see you all on the next one.